Good morning. My name is Kiana Conley Akinro. I am the Senior Executive Director for the LA chapter, and you're here with me today at another taping, another conversation of GRAMMYs Bridges the Gaps. Yay! Oh, yes, we have a live room today. That is our live member audience. We are also excited to have our second day of tapings, and today it's all about our producers and our engineers. So one of the main focus of our year has been how do we engage more on the topics that you guys are all buzzing about. And so our producers and engineers wing, our professional development committee, our songwriters and composer wing committee have all crafted some really interesting topics that will be inspiring and allow us to have a deeper dive into current issues that you've been talking about in your genre and craft communities. Today's participants and those that are in the audience, again, are Recording Academy LA chapter members and peers. So whether you're in the room with us or you're watching us virtually, you are here today. You're a Grammy nominee, you're a Grammy Award winner, you're a member of our new class of 2023, you might be one of our LA chapter board leaders or a part of our next program, or even one of our amazing Grammy U members. So as you can see, we have a host of everything we see and love about the LA chapter membership represented today. So for all music business giants or indie creators alike, you are here today and you are welcomed. Our first conversation of the morning is about our music community for producers and engineers. And these are built on conversations that we've been hearing have been coming up in your studios or at your restaurants when you're having lunch and chilling with each other, or through your compelling social media captions. It's brought to you today, though, in this forum so that we as a Grammy family can have an impactful voice, that we can share a knowledgeable perspective and be a bridge in our community. We can engage together and with our music business locally and beyond. We hope you will find these conversations engaging, informative, and truly reflective of your voice, those of our music community of creators and professionals. So before I introduce our moderator and panelists for today, I'd like to thank our amazing partners at 1500 or Nothing. We are in their home facility, Volume Studios, which is adjacent to the 1500 Sound Academy, and they've been amazing in allowing us to host our event in their wonderful space today. Another shout out goes to the wings of the producers and engineers, as well as songwriters and composers, and our Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the partnership today around the Black Music Collective keynote producers and engineers wing conversation we will have with the founders of 1500 or Nothing later today, James Fauntleroy and Rance Dobson. So thank you for your support. Let's start our first discussion, the future of music and technology for producers and engineers. I'd like to introduce Jet Galindo, who is a co-chair for our Producers and Engineers Wing Committee and a newly elected governor. She will be introducing our panelists. But first, a little bit more about Jet. She's a Los Angeles-based mastering engineer and vinyl cutter at The Bakery. She worked on various notable vinyl releases, including Pink Floyd's 15th and final album, Endless River. Other notable artists Jet has worked with include Bette Midler, Neil Young, Randy Travis, Seth MacFarlane, to name a few. Jet, please join me in the conversation today.
Thank you, Kiana. Hi, guys. Hi, everyone. It's such an honor to be introducing our first panel today. Especially at this time, we're witnessing a wave of innovations that could reshape our music industry as we know it today. From AI to immersive experiences like Dolby Atmos and even blockchain technology, there's so much to look forward to. Though it may seem daunting, it's through embracing dialogue and exploration that we become empowered as music creators. So I'm incredibly honored to have our panelists today to lead this important conversation about the future of music technology. Let's welcome them to the stage. So starting off with our moderator, Ms. Alana De Fonseca. So Alana is a Grammy-nominated, award-winning, platinum-selling producer, songwriter, and vocal producer, arranger, and engineer. She's written over 1,000 songs in TV and film and featured on multiple platinum and gold soundtracks. As a vocal producer, she's worked with many of today's top artists, including Daft Punk, Sean Paul, Kesha, and Miley Cyrus, among others. Let's give it up for Alana. And next, we have Kristen Jewell. She's the founder of Jewel Concepts, a music marketing and management firm for independent artists like Hamish Anderson and Ruby Vell and the Soulphonics. She is also a senior analyst and research contributor with Water and Music, focusing on AI music and Web3, and advises startups like Studio.io Space and NVAC Collective. Let's give it up for Kristen. Next, we have Mishka. Is a multi-Grammy nominated producer, multi-platinum writer, producer, vocal producer, who's worked with the likes of someone who sounds familiar, Michael Jackson, Britney Spears, Maluma, El DeBarge, Leslie Odom Jr., Gwen Stefani, Little Mix, Luis Fonsi, Austin Mahone, Jojo, Tinashe, Mario, B2K, and many more. Thank you for having us. And next, we have Simon J. Simon J., pop producer, is known for his work as half of pop production duo Chapters with Luke Shrestha. He is known for his work with top artists and events like the Grammys, Emmys, Olivia Rodrigo, Madonna, and brands like the NBA and Disney+. Notably, Simon produced music for Hulu's Only Murders in the Building and Claudia Brandt's Grammy-winning album Sincera. Welcome, Simon. And last but not the least, we have Jess Furman. Hey, Jess. Named one of Billboard's top 40 industry-shaping executives, Jess Furman's career spans tech, new media, Web3, film, music, and nonprofit sectors. She is the Chief Growth Officer for Tribe Studio, Managing Partner for Meta Vinci Labs, and co-founder of Register One and Web3 Music Rights Group. Jess also co-leads Blue3 DAO, empowering women and non-binary individuals in Web3. Welcome, Jess. So as you can see, we have an amazing panelist discussing our topic today. So take it away, Alana.
All right. Well, I'm terrified because we don't have that much time and we could talk for 7 hours. So I'm going to ask the first question. We'll just hop right in and we'll just go down the line. I want everybody to answer. So what's your top emerging technology and how does it affect your process? Let's start with Kristen.
So yay, I get to kick it off. Okay, so there's so much to choose from. I mean, we have a lot to discuss, but I'd say probably my favorite technology that I've seen so far is Audio Shake. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of it or used it. It's a great platform. The woman who runs it is phenomenal. She's winning all sorts of awards. But what it does is it takes a song file and it extracts the stems from it, which I don't know if you guys have ever been, I'm a manager, I've been handed files and they're like, oh, I love this. Can I have it as this stem? And we don't have it. So now that actually solves that mystery of like, how do you go back to the producer or the engineer and be like, I need those stems? And they oftentimes don't even have them anymore.
Uh-oh.
So, yeah, exactly. So this is great. I think that's a phenomenal tool.
Great
Highly
answer.
recommend.
Thank you. Jess?
I'm going to go a little higher level on it, just in broad sense. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm really into blockchain, Web3. There is an incredible opportunity for there to be a new ecosystem for how creatives relate to fans, ownership over your creative works, and also just how the economics in general work between how we expect our music to be delivered in terms of how the DSPs work right now. So I would say NFTs, which I know have a really bad name, but if you really know what NFTs are, they're incredible contracts that gives you the ability to have royalties and residuals, that gives you the ability to have resale of even your artwork or your videos, things attached to it. And once your fans hold them, you have a direct link to your fans in those wallets. So there's a lot of technology outside of the buzz that I think is underutilized for our community.
Just to follow up, why do you think NFTs have a bad rap?
I think it's like anything with collectibles. Like people will buy, the concept of like, visual art or, you want to own this thing. You don't really know what it does. And what the promise is that makes it actually valuable is what they call utility associated with it, right? So a lot of they call them pump and dump schemes that people have seen is that you end up purchasing something you think it's going to be of value. The shift of the economics is also the way we have to think as creators as to how we want to interact with our fans of our music. And I think that's why it's had a bad name, because people will buy these NFTs and then they don't maintain the level of community and delivering on the promise of what those NFTs are supposed to provide for the community. They kind of just sell it and then they move on and do something else. That's not how this technology is really leveraged in the best way possible.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, of course.
The music aspect of the NFT world is actually incredible. I think the problems maybe stemmed from like the artistic use of it, and people were just like doing things and then saying they were going to be doing more with it, and it just stopped. So I feel like that for us as music related people, I think there's tremendous opportunity to like actually reframe that. But there isn't really a lot of people in the space actually right now still. So I think as it grows and matures into more commercial viability, you'll start to see that seamless experience come. So I'm a big believer in it.
Well, yeah, and it's thinking of NFTs as a strategy and not as a thing you sell.
Yeah.
Like if you think of it as a record or you think of it as an album in vinyl as opposed to, an MP3, that's where it falls flat. So I think a lot of people have actually ended up using it in that way where it's a one-off, and that's not actually where its power is. Its power is in the community that you build with your fans. Each person that holds your NFT, again, you have to have the wallet to be able to drop it. So now you have a direct link. You don't have to go through a third party. Like you actually have that link to your fan, and there's so much you can do with that technology.
Very powerful.
Mishka.
What I've been using lately is it's called Otomy, and it's basically a AI version of a vocalist. So for back in the day, I could sing a demo and send it to a record company with my voice on it, and they would get the song. Now they don't really get the song unless it sounds like the artist that you're actually shopping it to. So there are tons of vocals up there, tons of vocalists who sound totally different than I do. Like I sound like a cross between Michael and Babyface. So,
Ow.
So if I could put, Aretha Franklin on my voice, it changes the way the demo sounds. And to me, that's pretty life-changing. Pretty life-changing for me as a songwriter.
Yeah. And right now, do you still have to do the same inflections? So it's like basically you singing through their puppet, kind of?
Yes.
In order for it to sound cool.
Yes, you have to sing it the way you actually want it to sound. All the inflections have to come from you. It has to be a really clean vocal. But the result is pretty amazing. It's not going to be like, I don't think it's going to change things for, demo singers I would have hired back in the day, because I hired those demo singers for the extra X factor that they apply. But for a quick analysis of, this is in the realm of where I want to be. It's pretty game changing.
Yeah, it's an amazing tool for us.
Yeah.
Simon?
Can I use someone's mic?
Oh.
I'm also just realizing now that I'm on a panel with people way smarter than I am. So I'm kind of rethinking my whole, what I wanted to say today, honestly.
I feel you.
No, I think just to mirror what you're saying, I think that's really cool. And I'm thinking now, as producers, we look at things through the lens of the artist. And for a developing artist, a tool like that's super useful, because if maybe you're not the best singer, you can hear what your voice elevated would sound like with those inflections. So I think having a capture of your voice would be really cool. As a vocal producer, I'm sure you understand and thinking about elevating in that way too. So that sounds like a really cool tool. For me, I'm more on the technical side, so I'm thinking there's this company called Kazarog that does really great work. I think I've seen a lot of producers integrating them into their workflow, and for us, we do that a lot, because I think this company is really focused on having true impulse responses and really, really accurate readings of these vintage gear that not everyone can afford, but also elevating it for the producer to be really a workhorse in your workflow. So I think that's really important too. And on top of that, when we have all these dongles and chains and iLocks and everything, having a company that's really thinking about the consumer, and maybe you get a new machine or change your workflow, having a company that's kind of looking out for you that can optimize that is really helpful. So
Amazing. So next question, we sort of started getting into it, but what are the economic implications of these emerging technologies? Ladies?
The possibilities are endless. Yeah.
I mean, I would say ownership on a couple different levels. To Mishka's point, ownership over, I'm gonna date myself, but like I learned to old school produce where like I couldn't program a keyboard player. I had to hire the keyboard player, you know, like, and there was so much discovery and creativity in that because I wasn't programming it, or I wasn't like selecting a sample. Like I would find the right drummer, right, for the right artist, for the right project, like for the right, you know, that moment in time, and then they would make those creative choices, right? And then producing is shifted to, you know, we make so many choices as producers, right, that you wouldn't have made in those other settings. You would just pull in all these different creators. So I think emerging technology is ownership on two levels. Like one is ownership over that creativity. So in Mishka's case, like how great, like that he can use his voice. He has to have the inflections. Like all of this technology is only as good as the knowledge you have, right, to make it, you know, actually have an end product at that level. So ownership, I think, over your creativity is one way of using it. The other is getting back to blockchain, ownership in general, right? We've accepted a way of being where we don't own our own music. We don't own our own creativity. And something that's really cool about Web3 is the emergence of this ability to own, like, actually all of that. So I think it's ownership on two levels.
And I'll just go a little bit further on that one too. I think the provenance piece is amazing. The ability in my mind now to show proof that you've done this when you did it, I think is becoming more and more important. So I feel like that's a safety net in some respects that, you know, especially in the blockchain, it's impenetrable. You can see when someone had an original idea. I think that's very helpful in what we're about to go into. And then I think the second piece is the utility around fan engagement, or even just knowing your consumer, knowing your customer. That piece is like a very complicated landmine right now. And so these types of technologies help you get very cleanly into the space of connecting with someone, which is, again, thinking about what we're facing, a very complicated experience because we don't always know who we're dealing with. And we might not know a lot in the future either. So not to be nefarious, but actually positive about at least you have a path forward and you can directly associate like they're a legitimate person, something that you've dealt with. Know your customer.
And Jess, can you describe quickly Register One for us?
Yeah, so I have a project called Register One, and it kind of, to like piggyback on what Kristen was saying, this concept of transparency. So it utilizes blockchain to track copyrights, and the goal is to make this process that now is a fragmented process where you register in like 8 different places. You have discrepancies across what those records are, and a lot of the money ends up getting lost, and it's not tracked in a transparent way. One of the benefits to blockchain is that it's a public ledger, right? That's how blockchain works. Is essentially all it is a ledger that's verified in a decentralized form. That's super nerdy, but the the really short answer to that is, or explanation for it is just that if you have parties verifying something, it's not, again, on a privatized server. So what does that mean for us, right? What does that mean if your publisher maybe accidentally misregisters something, or your co-writer's publisher does? With Register One, we want to create like a process by which you can go in and it pushes out to all of those things in terms of your records, and it pulls in that data and shows you where the discrepancies are. So it's meant to streamline a process that hasn't been very transparent.
That's great. And and not Register One, but there's so many things out there that are doing great things. And once you do that, I feel like there's also one thing I'd like to talk about with respect to the engagement of the communities that are developing around these emerging technologies. I'd love to encourage everyone, if you're watching, if you're listening, just think about joining these types of environments, or, you know, the FYI.ai app that's out there. That one is like an actual community that meets up on Thursday nights in Los Angeles, but it exists on an app that's AI driven, and it has all sorts of ways to prove provenance, to show ideas. It can actually help, and I'll talk about it more later too, but like it can show further engagement for your fans and for your industry people too. So remember, we are our fans too, right? Like we're in that space. So there's a lot to be said for like putting it out on chain and then making sure that you know who your people are and actually using these tools to engage the community with the emerging technology that they are as well.
Yeah, that's actually really important as a caveat, right? So like deep nerds, right?
Yeah.
But everything I've learned from communities. So one of the things I mentioned was Blue DAO. I was part of a DAO that traveled the world and educated women and non-binary into the tech space. Community is the most important thing. So like if you hear anything you don't understand, like don't just Google it. Like, you know, in the music industry, usually like the first people you find are not necessarily like the most scrupulous, right? They know that you're green. They're going to say it's a good deal. You don't know any better, right? right? Like it's the same landscape when it comes to emerging technology, but there are amazing meetups, there are amazing groups, there are amazing organizations that are aimed towards educating you into the space so that when you are approaching these emerging technologies, you're making sure that you have a community to support you as you make those choices.
Love that. Guys, do you want to weigh in or do you want a new question?
New question.
Okay.
No, okay. Actually, the one thing I will say on that too is I think having platforms like that are super great because I think for a developing artist, you already have fans, you just haven't found them yet, right? So there's a lot of people who, if you were moved, like I love Taylor Swift, so definitely has come across in my music making. If I were an artist, there are other people that like Taylor Swift too. So I think that. Having a means to discover people or have them discover you, they're already fans of your music. They probably are inspired by the same things. You connect with them on many different things. So having platforms like that are great because they allow you to find those people that have common interests. It just so happens you're the artist.
Can I mention one thing? Yeah. I wish that this had been available like in 2011. I had a huge record that I had 25% on. And in some territories across the world, they were giving me 2.5%. And it took just the most amazing amount of work on my manager Donna's part to find out that was the issue. But this would have solved it all.
Yeah. And it happens all the time. It can be a comma. It can be, I know if you guys use the MLC. Have you guys heard of the MLC? Yeah, that was a little horror show for me. Like, I've done hundreds of songs for TV and film over the years. And I remember putting in my name and it pulled in all these records. And there were like, some publishers that had been collecting that I wasn't signed to for years. Like, maybe an error I wrote with their, one of their writers, and you don't know what you don't know, right? It just doesn't show up on your statements. I don't know if I'm sure you've had that issue too, where it's like, if it doesn't show up, you don't know someone's collecting on it. But even with the MLC, which I think is a good solution, I was on the board of SONA, so we helped pass the Music Modernization Act, so I have a lot of love for us having gone up against the DSPs and creating a solution. It was what's called a unilateral pull. So if you fix all of those records there, it doesn't fix it anywhere else. And that's what I've been trying to fix or create with Register One. Like if you're going to play whack-a-mole with like your 2.5%, in this case you had someone advocating for you, right? But like I want to be in the studio. I don't want to be chasing down my 2.x% that over 10 years I might have made, how much money on. Like we should have systems where if you fix it in one place, it fixes it everywhere,
Oh, you mean centralized?
And to be honest, if I'd been a published artist, I probably wouldn't even noticed. Because the only reason why at that point I noticed was because I got both checks. And when one check is way smaller than the other, you're like, they're supposed to be the exact same amount. Had I been published, I would have probably never known.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's going somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, next question, and we'll start at this end.
Oh, great.
How do you feel about AI helping to identify emerging talent and predicting trends in the music industry?
Wow. Well, it just brings me back to that conversation we were talking about before we started, the difference between taste versus novelty. Right. So taste is the thing that guides your decision making in a creative process, whereas novelty is that discovery instant, right? So I think on social media you get a lot of novelty, but you don't perhaps get a lot of taste. So having programs like what you're saying that can kind of bridge the gap between no pun intended. Gotcha. Yeah. Like that are really great. So I'm thinking that as far as like technology is such a great tool, but also like it is up to the artist to connect with their fans and help define their taste. Because I think for new artists, it's really tough because people already love the greats. And I think as a new artist, you really have to pull someone from what they know into something they might not know. And, unfortunately for me right now, I'm so tired of my days. Like when I listen to music, I'm listening to the same 20 songs on repeat, like honestly right now. But I think I would love to have the experience of someone pulling me into a territory that I might not have expected to have been in, and I think that's the difference between taste and novelty.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and it's really tough because whatever people are responding to on social media is not necessarily what they like. That's the other thing that we're talking about. It's catching their ear, it's catching their eye for some reason, but it's not necessarily what they would want to engage with normally.
And also, they might not be able to engage with it, period. Because, I mean, as you think about like what's really popping and what trends, it's like it might be a sound file. Is there an artist associated with it? Can that artist perform? Are they touring? Do they actually exist as an artist, or are they just like a human being who maybe used some AI tool now to create some sound file that then got people moving and doing something? So there's just so many variables of like, what do you actually go for? And that's where it becomes like a trend or a novelty, but it cannot be sustained. And that again, to the future of where we're going with this, knowing how to play your instruments, knowing how to show up and perform, that's going to be a much bigger thing than we even could possibly know right now.
Well, also like predictive, like artificial intelligence in terms of finding trends. Predictive analytics are reactive. So what I mean by that is that it analyzes something that's already happening, right? I was at a panel where they kind of like they turned it on its head, and I was like, yes, this is creativity, right? Creativity is in the outlier, right? It's in the outlying of a curve. And I think the optimism within AI for creatives is that, you know, we're all like kind of like little weirdos, right? Like we buck the system a bit, right? So if you have technology like AI that is programmed to give you the most likely response, right? That's a curve. So it's going, hey, everyone's doing this type of rock music. So where you're going to fall off in terms of opportunity is it's going to predict where the trend's going, right? But I don't know how many of us try to necessarily go where the trend's going. We might in terms of like updating our instruments over, you know, say, okay, maybe I need to use this new plugin, or it's a little too guitar heavy and it should be, you know, these types of drums. But true innovation lies at the poles, right? So if you're coming at creativity from that space, AI isn't really gunning for you. It's gunning for the top of the curve.
And I have a question, I think, for you guys as we get further down the line to someone that knows anything about that. not me. But I do think that if you're running AI, like you do have to filter it like good questions, right? You can't be like, how do I become a pop star?
Garbage
you
in,
have
garbage
to be
out.
like, how do I create a fan base that will sustain me, blah, blah, blah. You still have to feed it like
Specific
specific
prompting,
prompts. Yeah. So I'm going to pass this over now.
Well, I was going to say, because you were talking about input with your voice. So like,
Well, to me, I think you still have to have some talent. Like we all have. Like I remember when I first started, I was trying to write songs for people to like, and it wasn't until I started writing songs that I loved that I became successful. So AI can do some things in getting you an audience, but in terms of who you are as a songwriter, I think unless you're writing songs that you love, the success is never going to come from a trend like that.
Preach.
100%.
We're all with you, yeah.
And it's a little bit sad when you meet with extremely talented artists and you see them being dragged around by the algorithm because they're going, oh, well, this song really reflects me and my artistry, but it didn't do well. And this other thing, it popped off, it went viral. And it's like, well, you don't know if that's because people even like the song. Like, look what there's so many other variables. So, okay.
But know yourself, right?
Know
that's the piece.
thyself.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. I'm moving on to the next
Yeah.
question. Okay. Ooh, everyone's gonna love this one. Okay, how do you envision, and we touched on this a little bit, but let's get into it because it's the most important thing, AI changing the landscape of how an artist interacts with their fans?
Well, I'll just start with saying it's a productivity tool. Let's just call it what it is. It's an efficiency tool. AI is built into almost everything we're doing right now, right? Like, so it's an enhancement potentially. There's one thing that I think is probably going to come from most very large artists, and possibly even once it gets figured out, independent ones too. But it would be the idea of scrubbing. This is a very far out one. Okay, scrubbing your engagement, scrubbing the words that you use. Like if you are Taylor Swift, right, your favorite artist, take everything that's ever been done about Taylor Swift, right, and things she said you can isolate, and then you put it into a thing and the IP becomes yours as Taylor Swift, right? Then you put that into a chatbot. That LLM is that large language model is now yours as an artist. That could be a very interesting game changer for some artists who really do want to interact more like themselves and less like a social media presence, right? That you can actually now have a conversation that's designed by that artist for you to engage with. There's a good chance that's going to be a really big fan. You know, we're in the NFT space. That's about as close as you can get to an artist, right? Like a fan, direct to fan engagement really hits the road there. Like they're in it with you. They want to be part of your team. They want to be your community street team. They want to do all that stuff, you know, for you. They want to design your merch sometimes. So there's so much opportunity there. And then like if you keep pushing it, it's going to go into places where maybe you can't sustain that. There's a reason why major artists aren't in the NFT space. I think a lot of the commercial viability does not preclude them from coming in right now. The landscape isn't there for them. But eventually there could be a match where you have this like experience from the artist perspective with what they've said to be, that they've said it's theirs, and they control it. It's theirs, and then the fans come to that, then I could see that actually leading to more of the like breakthroughs in provenance and ownership and relationships with fans that are more like succinct, you know?
I love it. And I want to open it up before Jess answers to, instead of AI, any emerging tech, how does any emerging tech affect the relationship between the artist and the fan at this point?
I mean, I think I really like Kristen's answer with regards to using it as a productivity tool. Like if we don't use it and educate it on behalf of us, the market will do it for us. And the market that brought us Spotify, you know, the market that brought us digital service providers that keep a lion's share of the money and only distribute how much for the product they sell. It's like walking into a store where the store keeps all the money for the products in it, right? So I think, you know, thinking of these tools, like not being afraid and getting riled up when you hear that it might replace you, like that's meant to have you have an emotional relationship with something where you fear it, right? You move away from it. And what that does when you lean out and you don't educate yourself is it allows other people to enter a space and build things. And what people build in that space, who are business people and who are technologists, you know, some might be well-intentioned, without our voices in the room, they're not going to build things in our favor, either because they don't understand a very complex, convoluted system of how we get paid, which is very, right? I think of how many royalties and rights. So how do I think it could shift the landscape? I think it's a tool. You need to look at it and educate yourself, you know, on it. And I think also artificial intelligence is such a charged thing because we've all seen the movies, right? Where like robots are going to take, you know, over. And the reality of it is that it's being called artificial intelligence, but it's machine learning. We've been doing this for a really long time. We have really complex computer programs that you have an input and you have an output, right? We were just chatting about this in the car with Melodyne, right? Like there are things that analyze waveforms, right? That's not necessarily artificial intelligence, right, yet. So don't be intimidated by it. They're definitely tools. And if we don't build in this space with our voices, people will build things for us and not in our favor.
So are you saying that at some point Taylor Swift could be having conversations with other people?
I mean, like I don't know if she would
Without
want
her
to.
ever having
Yeah,
to? That's just
yeah. I
genius.
actually know there's a lot of like think about maybe in the hip hop realm. Let's maybe take Taylor out, but people who are a little bit more, you know, just like shooting from the hip or whatever. There are companies that are being formed right now, and I know two of them that I've been talking to that literally design this as your IP. That's your IP. You said that. So it's out there for everybody to see, but also, you know, you could take anything you've said on your website, anything that's been said on your social medias, like it goes into this bank. And if the artist is like, hey, I want to go into a space, but I actually don't have the time for it, but I want to have a rich or enriched or enhanced fan engagement or fan experience, they can 100% be looking at this as an option for them. And it is a novelty in some respects, but it's theirs. And like Jess was just saying, you get, again, I said this about digital twins, get ahead of this, because if you don't, someone else is going to take that data and then you're going to have to pay for it. Yeah. So here's where I'm like, just own it. Like I if you have that at stake, there's a price and a payoff for everything. Start to think about that.
Well, and you could theoretically do that with yourself this afternoon. By the way, I don't know how many of you guys use ChatGPT. Yeah, okay. Teams version is a great one, and this is kind of getting into IP and ownership. The terms of service for a lot of these models are that they keep your stuff. So read the fine print. The version of Teams that's a little pricier, the cool part about it is that they can't theoretically, right? Is it enforceable or not? But they're not technically allowed to train your stuff on it. So I actually have friends who have trained like their entire model of themselves. Like they'll import like their articles they've written, like the tone, and they'll get it to respond as if it's them, or even their voice, right? I have a friend who lost his voice, was able to sing on a record for that reason.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing, what she just talked about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anybody have anything else to No, sorry, I told them I was going to shout at some point. Okay. I had 2 coffees, you guys. Leave me alone. Amazing. Let's go back to the question about artist and fan engagement. That's where we are. Emerging tech and artist and fan engagement. I love this chatbot idea. And I think people would be surprised at how much pleasure somebody could get out of talking to a chatbot, even though they know it's not real. Like, why not? Mishka, anything to add?
Well, to me, I think that is the idea of anybody being able to monetize that is just insane. And I mean, it's not just for, the Taylor Swifts, for like the El DeBarges of the world, for the Amarians of the world. That's a wealth of a whole new market that they've never had a piece of. And especially the way I'm going to tell you one thing. I went to your panel at the Recording Academy, and to be honest, after that, I just started jumping in because I felt like, you don't want to be the person who gets ruled over by tech. You want to be a part of it. I was probably one of the first people to develop this thing behind us. This S6, I was on the development panel for that. And I feel like we all have to reach for something further than where we are. And I think this is just such an amazing idea.
I'm here to blow your mind.
You continually do it.
Well, thank you. But I mean,
Both
seriously, it's an incredible time to be in this space. You will look back and you'll just be like, I can't believe all we did. And it will feel like 20 years and it's only been like 18 months.
Yes.
Like that's what we're already in.
So rapid.
Yeah.
It's just going crazy. Anything to add, Simon, before I do our wrap-up question?
Well, mine's actually more of a question for y'all.
I love this.
Oh, we're just doing 2-in-1. Question and
Question.
Well, I think a lot about authenticity, and there's this really great quote about authenticity in acting, but I think it applies to music too. It's authenticity is about what you try to hide more than what you try to show. And I think too, if like, for instance, if I had like a really hard day and I wanted to cry, I would be like, Mishka, it's such a hard day. You know what I mean? I'd try to stifle that cry. I think a lot of the authenticity comes from maybe like the things you don't want to show people, but maybe sometimes have to. I think my favorite songs really tap into that a lot. And I'm thinking as we do this, you can call it MML, how we can add that sort of authenticity in there too. Because for me as a fan of artists, I love that vulnerability. And I think something for like a big pop star, like having like PR responses might be kind of good, but for the artists that I really enjoy connect with, there's like this level of like, maybe I shouldn't share this. Like how does that kind of lean into a machine kind of learning to make those kinds of decisions?
I mean, it's input, output, right? So like it is what you put in.
Don't put it in.
Yeah.
Or do put it in.
Do
Or
put
do
it
put
in.
it in.
Yeah.
That's
Say,
the
don't
point.
put it in.
Yeah.
We didn't want to put this in, but here we are.
And that's the thing. It's like, okay, so I love the idea of being like authenticity is everything right now. So, and I really do believe that if you feel it, then it should be sayable. because that's where you find the humanity and the connection. So good or bad, right? When you, like, I was listening to Hold On today. I don't even know why it came in. I don't have a bad relationship with my boyfriend, but I was like, hold up, she don't love you like I love you. What? Like, I don't know what's happening here, but it's like just a vibe that you feel sometime. And so even if it's not authentic to me, I'm still, I'm feeling her. I'm like, I'm in that. Like, so I think it is important to put that, the good, the bad first too, sometimes, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And like the tough
100%.
stuff first too. So I'm with you.
Yeah.
And I do think these tools are designed for, if you do them right, they're designed for what you, the artist, wants to have be a representation of you. So
Okay, so in our last 30 seconds, tell me real quick, what are we using? What's in our emerging tech toolbox? But like quickly.
okay, I can start with FYI.ai. I think it's incredible to not just the community, but the AI that's built in there. And it's encrypted, so it's in its own thing. So it's not like ChatGPT where it's fueling everybody else.
Great. Jess.
I mean, my go-to is ChatGPT Teams. I have it trained on different roles and models that people I don't want to have to hire who are special, have specialties.
I want those.
Yeah, so I train the model and then say act as, and then I ask their advice.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Number one. I still, for me, Automy is for vocal producers, for vocalists, for singer-songwriters. It's just a great way to kind of get a new voice on a record.
Love that.
Kind of similar to what you were saying, but we use a program called Fader for the stems. I'm really not sure at what point which one's better or which one's worse, but I think when Luke and I were starting our careers, we learned pop production by just trying to recreate something from scratch. And I think being able to stem out a song for an artist trying to learn vocal production or production or mixing or anything like that would be super crucial.
Oh, yeah. It takes away a lot of mystery because you go, oh, that synth?
That's it.
So I love it. We are done.
What about yours?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, like, I don't know. I might be a little bit behind. I have to catch up with you guys. I'm like doing everything manually. No, I also love ChatGPT. Okay, let's go for our questions from the audience.
Hi, my name is Esther. I'm a Grammy U student.
Hi, Esther.
And-
Hi, Esther.
Hello. Thank you so much for your insights. And my question would be, what advice would you give producers and engineers on integrating new technologies into the workflow without losing the sight of the fundamental skills of musicianship?
Bro, that's a question.
Sorry.
Well, I could start out by just saying the skills of a producer and engineer are constantly in flux. I mean, as technologies emerge, we have to adapt to those. And if we don't, we're going to be left behind. Simon?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, Jet and I were actually talking about this like 2 weeks ago, I think, about creativity. How like, creativity is the intersection between curiosity and relaxation. So I think a lot of curiosity is important. So I think just not trying to integrate it, but just mess around with it. You know, just see if it works for you, how it works for you. It might work for you differently than the person next to you, and that's okay, right? It's creativity. But I think as long as there's that element of curiosity, I think it's really important.
100%.
Agree. But I would say that, you know, what you learn from other people and from other tech, I think you have to you do have to be curious. You always have to be searching for something that no one else is using. And I think if you're kind of on that cusp of always searching for something that someone else, like don't pick the popular plugin. You know, pick something that nobody else is using, that is brand new, and really just mess with it and see whether it works in your workflow. If it works, then more power to you. You have another tool. But I think as long as you are started in, you know, in the ground of, you know, your education as who you are, I think you're going to be good. But you always have to try and stretch and become a little bit, you know, more curious about what's out there.
Yeah, I would say don't do it or add things into your workflow because you think you should. if you have a certain flow that works for you, I love, like, yeah, be curious about it. But, it's really easy to go down rabbit holes. Like, I'll text friends, I'm like, are you using this? You trying this? And like, that song doesn't get done that day because I'm downloading something and I'm integrating it. Now I'm learning it. And like, I think that, just, be mindful of your process, be curious, and, but don't lose sight of the fact that you're creating something and these are tools.
I'm not a producer or an engineer, but I just say challenge yourself to think outside the box and be aware of what's going on. I mean, there's just, even I did a mastering project with the Isotope last year, and I learned so much about online mastering. I was like, this is crazy. I had no idea you could do a DAW, you could do all sorts of things. So just keep challenging yourself, trying.
And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on Pro Tools since 1998. But if I'm in a studio with an assistant engineer who does something that I think is just crazy, I'm going to ask him.
Yeah.
Like, what was that?
Yeah.
What was that key command? So you always have to, be searching. Just always be curious.
Mm-hmm. Oh, next question to the room. Sir?
Yeah, thanks. My pleasure.
Thank you guys so much for being here today. I'm Jonathan Thomas Mayoko. I'm a music producer and film composer. And I kind of have two questions. The first is, what makes you most excited about emerging technology? And for, I guess, beginners like me, I've been so focused on music that I'm not paying attention to AI as much as I feel like I should. And so for a beginner, where would you say to start looking for AI and blockchain? So, yeah.
First of all, don't shit all over yourself because you are right where you're supposed to be, 100%. This, like I said, the land is coming up to meet us right now. So we just have to keep doing what we do. I'd say try the FYI app, try things like ChatGPT. You are in production, so obviously you must have a DAW, so you're in it already, whether you realize it or not, with the amount of AI you're using in those spaces. I would say the next thing to consider is, blockchain, I'm sure she'll speak much more fluidly to this, but the one thing I would say is try to see who's out there for your music if you're actually releasing music, and have them commit to you in the Web3 space before you actually ask anything of it. That is one big piece, I would say. If you're going to try new things in that space, make sure you watch, be a part of the community, represent, and then ask something. So give before you ask. That's probably the one thing I'd share.
I would say what I'm most excited about is, again, ownership over your creative flow, utilizing these tools. You have a lot more reach, ownership over your fans, ownership over, your ecosystem, like the money that's coming in, that transparency. Across, like, utilizing blockchain and AI. And then I would say, Web3 Music Rights Group, if you look it up, that's something that we started. We do quarterly AMAs and we post a lot of resources. LA is a great space. If you want to learn more, you can look at meetups and stuff. There's like the whole Silicon Beach thing happening. Just start hanging out, go to free events, chat with people. People are really helpful in that context. And a lot of people are trying to learn, and they're at various stages. So that's definitely where I would start.
And I'm sorry, I forgot to answer your excited question. I would say, and we haven't talked about this, but I think the next thing that's going to come is AI usage for royalties and rights management, like where you can see your publishing. I think those dashboards, I've been asking for them for like 11 years.
We're doing that with Register One.
Yay!
We're doing AI tracking of
I'm
copyrights.
like, that's coming, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to make everything just frictionless for us. Yeah.
Oh, next question.
Hello. Yes.
Hi.
Junior Redisford. I'm a manager. I manage songwriters, producers, worked many years with talented Mishka. We go back. And then I also consult for emerging tech startups as a that help them bring music into their startups. So one of the challenges I have is the place where I can direct some of my writer producers to find out information about all of the AI tools that they can use. Some producers have jumped on it already and are using it, but I like to be able to advise them on spaces and places where they can find out information, so they're not feeling overwhelmed with the fact that this thing is coming in and possibly replacing them, but them understanding it's a tool for them. Most of them have gotten it, but I work with new producers and writers, and I'd like to be able to give them places where they can find out this information. So where can I direct some of them to, find out the new emerging technologies, how to use it, and understand it's a tool as opposed to something that's here to take over what they do?
We had someone on your
was
panel who
Marcus
actually
Bell.
had an actual place to go, and it was actually an address, and it had like every kind of AI you could think of, and it was.
I'll find it right now.
We'll find out what it was. But I think and yes, we have worked together so many times. I love this man. For any of your young producers, I think they really have to embrace it. Like there's no, that you don't. They don't have to. Don't be afraid of it. Like if you don't embrace it, you're gonna get lost. Like I hate to say it, but there's no way to just put on blinders. They have to figure out where it fits in their workflow. It might not fit in their workflow, but for some things, it's just so easy. Why not just try?
So I found the website, but it is a lot of letters. So I will just say Google bell ringer tools. Bell ringer
Oh, yeah,
tools.
he has a stack up there.
That's
Bell ringer.
Marcus Bell's list of the things that he uses, and he's very ingrained, entrenched in this space.
And he's the producer engineer type, so he's at the application piece where it's like hitting the road.
Sweet. Does anyone else have any questions or thoughts or considerations for us? No, we are absolutely done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alana. Thank you to our amazing panelists. Give them a round of applause. I love the last question that we got from Junior, just where is a resource for new producers and engineers. I just want to remind the room and those of you that are watching us that the Recording Academy does have an AI hub. Most of that information is going to be connected to policy and what our position has been as the Recording Academy around protecting creators as this emerging technology, is creating opportunities for us to have negotiate rights, management, ownership, and things of those nature. So in addition to the actual technology itself, if you're looking to direct people on how AI is protected or conversations around what the Recording Academy is doing in terms of having conversations around AI, please do go to our artificial intelligence hub. And I'm trying to find the exact, we might have to do this part over. I'm trying to find the exact website address. I think, okay, so I'll just start this part over. So yes, you can actually go to the Recording Academy website, Grammy.com. You can look on our advocacy site, and then there is an AI app or AI website that will give you information about policy related to AI and what the Recording Academy has done. So please think of that as a resource as well. We are at the close of our panel for today. I just want to say it was great. Did you guys enjoy it in the room? Was it informational, educational? Wonderful. A big thank you to our Los Angeles chapter member audience in the room today, as well as our amazing panelists and our moderator, starting with Alana Da Fonseca, Simon J., Mishka, Jess Furman, and Kristen Jewell. So today's conversation, again, was wonderful and informative and exploratory, which is the purpose of our Conversations, Grammys Bridges the Gaps series. We want to say another big thank you to the Volume Studios team for allowing us to host in this wonderful space, and a wonderful Happy Pride, it's Pride Month, as well as Happy Black Music Month. Thank you, and we'll see you again.